And once again, the intro gains points. Carnival of Randomness. I'm still Rob, but I'm going to refer Greg to Greg as our new Hollywood fashion plate.
That's right. Hey, how you doing? Let me tell you,
his hair is fantastic.
When you look at the pictures, you'll see why. I mean,
but you have your hat on, though. I don't think.
Well, I don't think anybody can see my hair on the broadcast here. So.
And we were going to kick our guests out because we were talking about Green Lantern and Batman, but we'll do that another show.
That's right.
But, that's what I mean about the show, that we talk about anything. We're like jazz, and speaking of jazz, glad to have somebody on I could talk jazz about. We're glad to welcome Emily Champion.
Hi.
And you brought a friend, introduce him because I forgot his name.
This is my boyfriend, Dan Morris. He's a guitarist.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah. Now, I was saying, the first time I ever saw you play, if you can somehow pick a year, was at Fringe Fest in the Alley with Anonymous Willpower. And I think, Greg,
and what a blast that was.
Were you? No, Greg, were you in the band at the time?
Yes, you were.
Yeah. And actually, my cousin is the one that did a video of it. My cousin Tad, he's from L.A., he's back in town for a little while because we had an unfortunate death in the family. But he did the film, and that's the most viewed video, actually.
Oh, really?
If you look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Now, if you want a compliment of sorts, my friend Brian Stratton and I were there.
I've been trying to play in more alleys ever since.
That's where
it was a fun alley thing.
You fit being in an alley, Greg. You know that. But my friend made the compliment when you were playing. He said, this band would be perfect as a soundtrack for an independent movie.
I mean, I agree. I was playing with Anonymous Willpower. I remember being about 23, so I want to say
so that was 2022, huh?
Yeah, well,
so, yes, last year.
I was probably 42.
I was, so that was about 12 years ago. I think it was the first Fringe Fest. Yeah, and it was, Greg and I were both in Anonymous Willpower with Susie and Don. And it was just such a fun band. It was, the influence of Don and his New Orleans style influence was just made it so fun. And then Susie is just such a powerhouse of
she's just
vocals.
a force of nature.
Is that a rite of passage show, I think, for musicians you could do? It's like Jethro Tull. You go from, there's all these band members, and now this Willpower graduates you. Some stick around Greg.
Yeah.
I mean, not just... With that band, I mean, I'm still playing with them in that Cupid's Boomerang thing with Susie and Don. But the thing with them is they just like to create.
Yes.
And they don't really put a lot of limits on anybody. It's, obviously you kind of know what's going to fit and what wouldn't.
Absolutely.
You can't bring some straight pop thing into their world because it wouldn't quite work. But, for the most part, I like that atmosphere of any band, just to go in there and create, because that's what you're trying to do.
Susie really lets people be themselves within her band, and that's why she brings them in. And there really is no ego about it. They do, like you said, they like to create. Yeah. And they always do something incredible.
And at least it doesn't end up being a basement band, because they get out there and they push and get gigs and stuff. So.
They do. And they're so well known. They have such a reputation in Rochester, and they're also, not to mention, just really great people.
Yeah, and I also mentioned, I call them like Voodoo Soul. I think
that's perfect.
But this is about you.
Yeah, what do you guys do?
When we have them on, we'll talk about them.
I will always praise Susie.
I always think it's a crazy thing to get involved in music. What sort of did you listen to when you...
Now you tell me.
Well, did you have any hope, Greg? What else you're going to be? It's like, they look at you, they go drummer. But what got you into, in terms of... did you have a moment where it's like, I really want to pursue this?
Yeah. I was really lucky. I grew up in a very musical family. My parents have incredible taste in music. And both of my parents are the child of a professional musician. So I was especially influenced by my grandfather on my dad's side, who was a jazz tenor sax player. And he, was very successful during the Great Depression. He toured with Woody Herman, Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman.
Oh, wow.
He was, very, just toured through the big band era. It was just amazing to hear about in my childhood. So I think just ever since I was little, I just knew that I wanted to perform, be a musician.
Did you ever hear any good stories about any of those guys?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, do tell.
Yeah,
we're a podcast, too, so we're not like radio. You
absolutely. Yeah. My dad just has amazing stories of just seeing those bands live. Multiple times he saw Count Basie Orchestra live. He saw Buddy Rich bands live. He was at the top of the plaza, the famous.
Yep, I was there for that one.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, as a drummer, Greg, that adds up.
I had to see him once at least.
Exactly. My dad saw those bands multiple times, and it's just hearing about how Buddy was just like soaked in sweat, and had to change between each and every song was just like. It's just like those little stories to hear about. My dad told me that, when he was young, that Count Basie toured through Binghamton, which is where my dad is from, and they got to talk to Eddie Lockjaw Davis, who was lead tenor sax player for Count Basie at the time.
I love those nicknames.
I know. They don't have those anymore, like Bird and Lockjaw. So he got to meet him, and, my grandfather, being a tenor sax player, was like, so what size reed do you have? And it's just like something insane, like those sax players and their gear is just, I can't keep up with it.
Out of the ordinary, though, with some weird, heavy,
pretty much
super
like a
thick reed or something.
Piece of bark in his mouth.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was pretty much like, what is it like to blow through that mouthpiece? And he's like, using that reed is like blowing through the Grand Canyon. And it's just like, you can visualize those guys kind of telling those stories.
And what I always think about this. I mean, I'm a big old movie buff, and all that. But for the longest time, there was no rock. I mean, there was there just wasn't. There was either classical, and then the crazy offshoots. The crazy cats played jazz and blues, and there was no. You know what I'm trying to say? It was just like that was it. You had to learn music if you were going to play music.
Right.
You had to learn
that type of stuff, it's like Scott Joplin, those type of things.
Yeah.
Folk.
You had to be a little bit more academically trained back in those days. There was no YouTube tutorial. There wasn't as much self-taught culture. You did have to have a teacher who was better than you. And so
that is the truth.
I think it was just different times in that kind of sense where they were at that professional level where the culture was working musicians.
Right. Well, I mean, every radio, the big networks, every network had a radio orchestras, and that was you played organ, soap operas, you had a gig for life.
Exactly.
I mean, I think about actually too, Britain, and what do you hear from everybody there? Do you hear, down the line, obviously they were influenced by, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly, everybody else. But who was their big guy? It wasn't a rock guy. It was Lonnie Donegan and Skipple. Right. And everybody, you can't read any bio of any of these musicians. And that was your basically, hitting the pots and pans and that type of thing.
Right.
And everything else. So that's why you go into jazz. My dad liked Red Skelton, so I go into podcasting. That's the difference. But that's true. People don't get that. A lot of people don't get a sense of history that, it's like rock wasn't there yet.
Right.
It was all this type of stuff.
It was still evolving.
Yeah, and it was still blues back then.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something?
I was going to say...
We're free to jump in anytime,
Dan only speaks when I allow him to.
You're not like Andy Warhol, like on an interview with Edie Sedgwick, where you'll whisper into her ear and she'll say what you say. Are you?
No. Well, I guess that remains to be seen. But, no, Jimmy Page, I guess, from Zeppelin started off on skiffle.
So that's what they all did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Dan would know a lot more about that culture than I would. I all of those kind of, that era of those guitarists. And Dan is from England, technically. You were born there, and you're still very familiar with that culture.
Yeah, we lived in Birmingham. We moved here when I was 3, so
Wow.
Been here a long time, but
still cool.
Still British.
My parents are still just as British as they were before, so
it's great.
Still grew up with a lot of the influence around it. So
I've been there, but to London mostly. Now my fear of flying, I have to get back to see some friends there eventually. But
I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, I love
especially London.
The best, the good old soccer hooligans. So we're at a hotel by Russell Square. And, you get out of the bars, like, around 12, there's, like, after hours club. But the soccer hooligans were going around now. My friend with me, they're like, one of them looks and goes, "You, my dear, you're cute." Then he looks at me and goes, "But you are beautiful." I love this country. I want to stay.
I love that country. It sounds great.
No, we had a great time and everything. But the only things you have to learn how to do you go to the underground and stuff, and of course I had to go to see the Beatles. There's a Beatles store which I had to go by. And they actually made them tussauds, which is cheesy, but I actually really like that. I still wax Floyd in my heart.
Yeah, for sure.
That being on the show.
I have a friend who's a vocalist living in London. She's from Rochester, and she's lived there for a really long time, and she gets just regular work as a musician. And she says that the culture there is different. You can be a musician there and, like, make a good living, and it's not like you have to be a huge name. You can just, like, get steady work.
Don't say that out here. There'll be nobody to go see you go leave.
Everybody's going to go to London.
But we got grown up in this. Something I've noticed with a lot of our guests is a lot of our guests have, like my brother played in a band at, like, Scorgies and stuff. A lot of people come from music backgrounds. But okay, now you're going to pursue this. Now, you actually you did go, like, to Nazareth and stuff to actually learn technically music. Yeah,
I was really fortunate. Like, through high school, I studied with Paul Gaspar, who's still one of the best trumpet players I've ever met.
Oh, I know Paul. Yeah, he's great.
And then, soon after high school, I studied with Paul Smoker, and, that was a very different Paul. He was like just a hard ass. He he was militant, and any student of his knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Like Whiplash?
It was Whiplash. Yes.
No.
Yeah. I would wait until I got out to my car after the lesson to start crying, but he made me a better trumpet player by far. And I regret nothing.
No, there was a method to it, though, where he was trying to bring out.
He was harshest on, the students that he believed in,
right.
But he didn't want you to know that he liked you.
Right.
He wanted you to work hard.
I had some similar things at Naz with that. Like the one when they're really hard on you, then they're like, "Look, you really want to do this? Then you better be able to deal with it."
Absolutely. That's and I think I needed that at the time. I was 19. I was a dumb kid. I thought, I'm like, I can, I have range as a trumpet player. My tone is beautiful. I own the world.
What I think there's Go on, Greg.
Oh, no, I was just curious what brought you to trumpet. I'm just wondering.
Honestly, it's a simple story. I wanted to be a sax player like my grandpa, but then I found out it was, like, super heavy to carry. And so I was often in elementary school, I was walking, to and from school. I was like, that might just be really heavy. Let's think about something else. So they got in, Brighton, amazing music program.
So you started playing triangle.
So I started playing triangle. So you got to, try out a lot of different, instruments, see what best fit you. And, I tried out a lot of things. I was very drawn to brass. I liked being loud. And I just took a natural liking to trumpet. It was just kind of naturally easy for me to just, the muscle and the airflow. It was just something I had a natural talent for.
Cool. Yeah, because I know when I took it for methods classes, I'm like, holy crap, this is hard.
Yeah.
They're like, they go, okay, here's the drumsticks.
Now, Greg.
This is much better. Yeah. When I hit the trumpet, it doesn't do anything.
I finally found out about a French horn because I used to call it. I said it looks like a big Danish, but I always get to crack up with some musicians because I talked to one friend and I'm like, I really Miles Davis is one of my top ones. Probably Coltrane, probably is the best though. But I go, he's a really good horn player. He played trumpet. Like, excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. It's like the best answer though. Why are you playing this? It's easy to carry.
Yeah. I mean, that was. But I like to think, it's so cliche, but I didn't pick the trumpet. Trumpet picked me.
Right.
It was the journey that I had to take because I really think it is the hardest instrument to play. You are so vulnerable. You are so out there. You are so loud. You are,
right.
All of the instrumentation is in your mouth,
Right. You don't have much time to find the note. You got to hit it.
You're working with 3 valves.
Around. Anybody else have an opinion? Now, me, any instrument. Basically, the thing I could play was that horn you got at Midtown Plaza during Christmas. There was like a kazoo. That's about the length of my harmonica badly. Anybody else have any opinions on that? Like the toughest instrument you would think to play?
I mean, any instrument is hard to play. Yes, I would definitely agree. But I tell all of my trumpet students, you picked the hardest instrument. If you want to get out now, now's the time.
What would be, out of all those, yes, there probably all some difficulty, but what would be maybe the easiest of those type of instruments?
Oh, I mean, it depends on the person, but I think piano, I'm sorry, Andy, but you do have to be very mathematically inclined to play piano.
Explains a lot why I don't play anymore.
It is something that requires theoretical knowledge. And with trumpet, you can be like a football jock doofus and just, all you need is a lot of power. With piano, you have to have a lot of brains. But it is all laid out in front of you, literally in black and white.
Well, and not to mention the interfacing with basically any type of recording you do, it's going to be through a keyboard. So if you learn that, you're kind of covered.
Exactly.
True, it's a good basis.
Yeah.
So do you prefer working with a sax player or something? I mean, would you rather play like a little ensemble-y, or do you like playing solo?
I like playing with good musicians in a good environment, and I love performing the most because it's just, when you can do something like that and connect with your friends, going back to like Anonymous Willpower where everybody's there to just have a great time and see what we can do. That is where I love being the most. I love being in a group where you can bounce ideas through each other. You evolve from, listening to each other. You grow as a musician from playing with people, especially people who are better than you.
Right. But I mean, is it different? I mean, obviously, besides that you're playing alone, but is it better or cooler or more fun to play with?
It's
another
more
horn
fun
player?
To play. Oh, yeah. Like, horn section, absolutely. Yeah. I prefer a horn, more horns, the better. I mean, especially, trumpet is awkward to play by yourself. So a horn section is always preferred.
You need that lower end of the sax, probably, to balance it out.
Yeah. And again, it's just bouncing ideas off of somebody, creating a horn section, Junior Spezio, when he's at any of the jams, like at Murph's, I just grab onto him.
Right.
And, it's so much better when somebody else is there.
You can get some great intervals.
You ever see Walter Verbo's play?
No.
Okay, he's from the Netherlands, and he's a trumpet player, and this is one of those that I just picture in my head where there used to be the old Bob Shop shows down at the Village Gate.
Yeah.
Tom would bring in some eclectic. He played with Sonic Youth, all these.
Oh,
so he comes in, when he plays, he played one thing for 50 minutes, but I'm picturing the spittle was coming out of the trumpet.
Yep.
Wow.
We tend to do that.
There was one called the Dialect the Dog Quartet, which was this really out there avant jazz. They must have been doing this too because it was nonstop. But I was amazed as watching for 45, 50 minutes just playing what they. And they're it's coming out of it's like a waterfall.
Yeah.
How did you then, once you do this, when were your first sort of performances around here?
So, really, out in the world beyond school, I was a student of the late Tony Cabagnero. I was his guitar student. And, for those of you who don't know, he started a band, the Buddhahood, which is still around. And, it's a lot of those same people who've been around forever. So, I was about 13 when I just was really eager to just get out and play with anybody. And even though I was a guitar student, he decided to add horns to Buddhahood. He thought that was a good idea to include me in with, that horn section. And it changed my life. My first gig was, at Park Ave Fest behind Hogan's Hideaway. It was the year 2002.
That was a good stage.
I was in middle school. I was terrified. That was my first gig. And ever since then, I've just been, seeking that. So
how is that feeling?
I didn't know you played guitar. That's awesome.
Yeah, I played guitar. Yeah.
How is that feeling though? Because that's I've always Susie one time told me you should go up and tell jokes between our sets. I'm like, no, you don't know. If you don't know me, I'm shy. I can't do that.
Really?
That's why we do. Yeah, it's I just go up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. but how does it? I think almost me. I can't even my theater friends. I can't even. When they pick on me during a show, one of my friends always picks on me. Make sure they're leave me alone.
It's terrifying at first. Yeah, you are in front of a lot of people, and again, a loud instrument.
And they're just looking at you,
and they're
do
looking
something.
At you, and they're expecting, something amazing. So there's pressure, but
sometimes you almost are a character,
Yeah, it's sometimes you're an actor and you have to get out into a specific mindset and be in front of people as a show.
Yeah, we talked about that. Go on, Greg.
I have a personal philosophy about that though, because people don't always know why they're going out.
Yeah,
they're going out because I want to do something. Let's go out. So they go out and they want to be wowed. They want to see something. They don't know what they want to see yet, but they want to see something to say, so they can say the next day, man, I went out. So I think it's always you give them your best, and they'll be happy because they're seeing something they wouldn't see just sitting home.
Yeah.
But you have to I'm here to show these people something, and I'm going to give them something. Yeah. And I don't know, that's almost like you have to think that way. It's not that you want to be phony or anything, but you just want to. You're a performer, so, hey, here it is.
And we've had this sort of friendly debate a few times where,
I hear air quotes there.
Friendly.
She's more on the side of, it's what counts as how complicated or how, well the music is played, whereas I'm, a little bit more into it should be a show, too.
Right. Well, it's I worked at a restaurant a long, long time ago, and the guy made a comment to me once, and he said, people eat with their eyes. And it kind of always stuck with me. I mean, obviously, the way, you don't want them the garbage plate is one thing, but even that has a sort of a form,
It does.
It's got to look a certain way on the plate,
And I agree with that. I absolutely. And
I will text friends, one of my friends who lives in New Hampshire now. I rarely go for plates now, but I'll send a picture. He's like, that's perfection. It's art.
People outside of Rochester are very weary of the garbage plate. And I'm like, it's not an entree. It's a state of mind.
Right.
It has to be 2 a.m. after a gig, dead of winter, where you hate yourself. And that's, the peak hours of the garbage plate.
Diana Ross is one of my friends. His uncle drove the lemos for the War Memorial concerts.
Nice.
And Judas Priest stayed in there. They came out at 4. But Dinah Ross was into plates.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who's had a plate knows what's good.
That was probably her cheat day.
Greg, I draw the analogy a little bit like it's being used like frosting in cake.
Right.
The frosting makes the cake good, but you really want the meat of the cake. And I think that's part of drawing them in. One thing you were mentioning about, I think, a lot of people, they go out just to go out. You're right. I'm spoiled because I pretty much know every musician. So when I'm going to a show, I know them. And I've heard people say, some people come out, you ever hear of them before? No, thought I'd come out. But one of the things I love, though, is when you see people, especially when I've been on the road with some friends, the reaction when somebody's never seen them before. They're like, wowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Presentation's important. That's all. I mean, you can't just be presentation. Like, you get a band like Kiss or something. It's like, really, what else is there?
It needs to be more substance.
And that's what I'm saying. There has to be substance. You can go out there. You can be visually very entertaining, and I think that's all well and good. But it's just if you don't have the talent to kind of back that up, I think it just makes you look ridiculous.
It's vapid or vacuous.
We've talked about this a lot, like with bands we've had on, especially 70s bands. They really get it about the idea that people are coming to see a show.
Oh, yeah.
Now, honestly, when I was a teen, I was probably so spaced out during the shows. A couple of my friends were like, did we see the concert? So, no, but you're going to see, like, these are performers. They're not people like, you didn't go, okay, you two are fine. That boy, I don't know, he's a drummer. But you kicked out of the audience.
I never get
just,
to see
you guys go up on stage. No, you want to see something, people, the way they're dressed, the way they perform, and you want to hear stuff that's good. I mean, and somebody, this band looks great. I remember, and I won't say the name, I don't know it, but I saw an opening band I've always said is the worst band I've ever seen. They weren't from here. I'm glad about that. But they came out, they all were dressed up like doctor smocks and stuff, and they're playing, and they were just horrible. The music was horrible. Now, I could see the presentation, but that was one of my only bad moments where I'm sitting there and it's at Water Street, and they look like one of my friends is yet to get to. Everybody's looking at me like I'm a narc.
Yeah.
When I go back and go, and just at the moment with one of the songs, I go, this sucks. And everybody looks at me.
I will say an example that I think it's legit of showmanship and really stage presence and charisma. A great example is Tenacious D. I think that Jack Black is like a mediocre musician, and I think he would be the first to say that. The real musician in that group is Kyle. But he has such a presence. He is ridiculous. He is in your face. You cannot take your eyes off of him.
Right.
And he is so confident about it. And that's what makes me respect him so much as a performer.
I'm laughing because years ago, I had people come up to me. I was working at the corner. So a band was like, are you him? I have to ask. Thought it was Kyle.
Oh, really?
And, one of those weird things where somebody says that it's like, you did your hair that way, you're wearing a cap like that.
Right.
All of a sudden, whenever I was out, I heard Kevin Gass. I'm like, Kyle, dude. People were saying that. I heard Frank Black from the Pixies a couple times.
Oh, really?
So my nickname, like at the old Toad, was KG.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, wow, I'm a rock star. I'm hot. I look at, damn.
Big compliment. He's quite a guitar player.
And I think there's a love of the. They know they're not the best, but it's like Spinal Tap. But they know the genre and they know how to. They know how to do the theatrics and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a huge factor. I think if you're a shitty musician, then it's just like, it's a little bit cringy. So you do have to have the substance to back it up. But I'm all for putting on a show. I don't want to be like, I'm totally like Miles and doesn't matter, and I hate all that stuff.
Do you like spin your trumpet around?
The thing is, I know guitarists who like to flip it around and, play with their teeth and everything, and it's fun to see, of course.
I would always freak though if I flipped the guitar around, if it broke the strap and went flying or something.
You have to have some very reliable locks on there.
Right.
I saw Buddy Guy. It was probably about 6 or 7 years ago at CMAC, and he opened for Jeff Beck. He still did every trick that they described that he's ever done with the guitar for years. He had it off, and he had like a, sort of like a face cloth, and he was kind of whipping it. And then he put it on top of the amplifier, and he's drinking a beer while he's still playing on the amplifier.
Still true to who he is.
He walked up in the audience, and he's taking pictures in the audience with everybody while he's playing every trick in the book.
That is endearing.
All the stops,
What a guy.
Yeah.
Did you ever, over the years, we always just talk about this to have fun with it. Did you ever have, like, some Spinal Tap moment when you're playing? I'll bring up an example, like when I saw Judas Priest. okay, Rob Halford's back in the band. His Queen's Drug Juice Freeze. They did Electric Eye. They came down these pods. Rob Halford got stuck in the pod.
And then as soon as he gets out, they all get back in again.
Yeah. Fry him out. Everything was just like Spinal Tap. But if you ever had like something's gone, now you look back and it was kind of funny, but like some kind of annoying thing happened.
I'm sure I have.
Or anybody you don't have to mention their name, but anybody you played with.
Oh man, I'm sure.
I know when I started gigging a little bit more seriously, I finally got a pedal board, and I still didn't really know what I was doing. So I didn't understand like the order that you're supposed to put the pedals in. So there was one show where I had a pedal I would normally kick on when I'm about to do a lead was not in the right place. And so every time I went to do a solo, and it was supposed to be my big moment, my volume totally decreased. You couldn't hear me, and you had no idea what was going on in the song.
I always point, we're like a good role models because we haven't known what we're doing on this for like years.
We're experts at it.
Yeah. No, but then also the other thing I'll bring up though is I think if you're a musician, you have to have a little bit of tough skin but professionalism, because there are going to be those gigs for all of us when there's no one there, the crowd's not into it. You still have to give someone said this to Susie one time. Somebody went up to her, I think it was at Johnny's. And she told me afterwards, she said it on stage too, that somebody said, you saying like if there's 3 people in the room or if there's 3,000, there's a difference.
That's what I love about her.
And I found some bands that I've been to seeing, they'll put on even a better performance when there's no one there.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's, like, awesome.
Honestly, it's kind of why I love being a jazz musician, is that you're hired for a lot of, like, what we call potted plant gigs. Like just playing during cocktail hour. You're kind of just setting the mood, setting in a nice atmosphere. No one's actually paying attention to anything you do. So you can use it as a really nice rehearsal that you're getting paid for. Right. And I love those gigs because it's just an opportunity to, to kind of work on everything you're bad at. Nobody cares.
Yeah. My New Year's gig was kind of like that, although there was applause after it was a jazz gig. But
there you go.
It was they were listening, but they weren't. You know what I mean? They were not actively staring at you or anything, but they knew you were there.
Yeah.
But cocktail parties are a weird gig, though.
You know what I've seen, though? I just saw it recently, too, where nobody's paying attention, they're talking, but when the song stops, they applaud.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a terrible friend to all my musician friends because I become, especially I hate crowds, so I'm always, I want them to do really well, but let me be, one of only 5 people there. As long as they get paid.
Yeah.
You hate crowds, it's like, oh, man, the house is packed. Oh, fuck.
Oh, man. This is
if I got, I've always said, if I had, some aunt I'd ever do, gave me $20 million. First of all, I set some place up to have all my friends play. But my other thing would be, I go to a gig, I go, how much did they pay? Here, pay them all back. I'll just feed them. I'll be like, hi!
That is really kind of you, I gotta say. Yeah.
And, I just get, I just have that fear of crowds. I don't know, maybe, 20, I've never been, Mr. Outgoing for crowds, but I could just get in my own space, but now it's, more so.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't like to be in the crowd, but I like to be, looking at it from the stage. That's kind of my sweet spot.
I know when I go hear bands, I kind of hide. I just find a corner, sip my beer, and listen,
Yeah, I'm against the wall usually. I find I need something to lean on, and I just go lean on. But I'll tell you, one phenomenon you're missing, though, is we've had a lot of 70s bands in here recently that people have thrown cabbages at them. Or they get an opening gig for somebody and they don't expect it, and they get booed off the stage.
Oh, see, I'm glad I don't live in those times, honestly.
Oh, my God.
In a way, I don't know. It's I've been looking back. I think it's one of the things we provide on the show, which I'm glad about, is a bit of local music history and hearing these bands. But the thing is, I look at there's something freer about that. I don't know. It's nobody was uptight. Yeah, I don't want. Yeah, right. As I've told Greg many times, that's the best place to be as a drummer. Throwing stuff at cymbals stuff.
Who are right in the back.
But I just have to
Ringo put his cymbals up that one time.
I have to backtrack just for a second because I have to use the famous line talking to Buddy Rich. Now, if it's true or not, remember the line is supposedly his last words. Well, it's not as bad as country music. Which I think, I like country music.
I think, there's a story. I'm a huge Buddy Rich fan. I tell people, like, when I was growing up, my parents were Count Basie and Buddy Rich. That's just like, and I loved the Spice Girls. So was the Times. But there's a famous story, like, he had a stroke or like brain tumor, and nurse asked him, like, do you have any allergies? And he's like, country and western. And that's one of the more.
What a great
That's actually one of my favorite actors is Richard E. Grant. I love the movie With No Eyes. I read his book. It's very entertaining. But he had to go be in the Spice Girls movie because his daughter would have killed him otherwise. So it was fun time. No, unless in terms of like when you started playing till now, if you noticed like your growth.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You look back though, are you like happy with how you were then? Or you?
Yeah, I mean, there's no point in regretting anything, and so obviously, I wish I could have done things a lot different. I wish I was better at sight reading, and I wish I had, paid attention to more of the academic side rather than just wanting to be a rock star. And I would have done better in college when I studied music, sure. But, at the same time, I look at who I studied with. I studied with Paul Gaspar, Paul Smoker, like just a lot of incredible musicians that I'm very, very lucky to know. And so I don't regret anything.
That's great. I have, I was thinking, though, my version of that for, your teachers, I had some professors, and I looked at them as, sort of your, rough grandfather or father's figures. You really got to know them. Yeah. But I would get, what the heck is this on this paper? Come on.
Did Paul give you any good circus stories?
Oh, yeah. It's just Paul is a character, and
really?
Gaspar.
Well, he played a lot of these circus shows. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, when he was 18, he went on tour with who's the circus?
Ringling?
The Ringling Brothers. Yeah, which circus music is insane, and it is insane to play, especially as a trumpet player. But he's such a freak of nature that he can nail all of that. He went on tour with the European tour of West Side Story as a lead trumpet player.
Wow.
And there's a handful of horn players who can do that.
Yeah.
He is an animal of a horn player.
Yep.
So, I'm so lucky to have studied with him and to know him.
Yeah. I just, a couple of wedding gigs, he was playing keys. But he's good.
Oh, and he's also an incredible pianist. Yeah.
Funny guy, too.
He's hilarious.
So, Dan, is your role in the band pretty prominent, or are you background guitar, or how's that work?
Yeah, so I know you had mentioned at the start maybe the difference between, someone who was self-taught versus somebody who had those...
We always have the best conversations before we do. Yeah. We've always said that. Just come out and listen to us in the hall before we go on.
That's why I come late, because then I know...
Yeah, go on. I went on a little bit about self-taught versus somebody going to school.
Yeah,
you remember me.
I basically just self-taught myself guitar. Started for all the wrong reasons. My friend who I, idolized was playing guitar. At the time, I think he was playing Blink-182. So, ended up in a totally different place.
Self-taught. Wow, I'm impressed.
Bought a guitar. The more I got into it, the more I loved it. The more I wanted to hear music that was most interesting to a guitar player.
Right.
Ended up going back to classic rock, then back to blues, and then just sort of kept opening up to more and more stuff. And I did take music business in college, so I do have, some training as far as music theory and things like that.
That's really good, yeah.
But I didn't have a teacher in the way that Emily did, as far as someone sitting you down with your instrument and...
Well, in a way, that's good. It's a good balance, I would think.
Well, I think, too, didn't, Eddie Van Halen, I don't think could read music.
No.
I think there's one criticism. They're going, well, Michael Anthony had to learn from Eddie Van Halen. Yeah, because he couldn't read music. He had to show him how to play.
Fact check. He played classical piano. So
yeah, I know that.
He had to know how to read music.
Well, he claims he can under the car.
He's right.
Hendrix could not read music.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right.
I mean, Eddie Van Halen was a virtuoso classical pianist.
Right. In fact, they were...
He was able to play jump on the keyboard. So
wow.
They were on opposite instruments when they were kids. Alex played piano and Eddie played drums, and then they switched.
Wow.
When they realized that Alex was just really good at it, and then Eddie switched to something else. Then he got into guitar. And that's where that happened.
You will note on this show you can trust us because as soon as something comes up...
Yeah. Well, the only story I ever heard was that he had done something where they recorded with an orchestra, And he said he didn't tune his guitar properly. It was in between E and E flat. So I assumed that was because he tuned it to itself, and he didn't know he had to tune. So the orchestra ended up had to tune to him in his recording.
Wow.
That's great. Now, one of the things, especially like Emily, you are very good at collaborations. And one of the things we talked about on here is some musicians, you have to, if you can, you should be confident, but not like egotistical in terms of being able to work with people. And some musicians we point out, like I always say Jeff Beck, great, incredible. Imagine if he could work with people. You know,
Yeah.
I guess Bob Dylan wanted to be Little Richard, but nobody could stand him.
Oh, really?
That's a story I read about him.
I didn't know any of
Another
it.
good story I've always read, Ian McLaughlin, who I got to know a little, gave me his book. He said that, like, when he was playing with Bob, he goes, he's like, am I doing okay? Bob's staring at him. And he's like, he's talking to somebody from, he's like, am I okay here? Bob keeps, it's like, oh yeah, Bob's nearsighted. He doesn't wear his glasses, so he wants to see where you are in the song. And I think there's the idea of being able to, and everybody could name somebody who's like Richie Blackmore. Yes, he's played with people, but in a way, he's not really like collaborative. But if you can put aside like a bit of ego and collaborate, and that's for you because you work with pretty much everyone.
Yeah, no, and I've loved working with everyone. I guess I've just never had that feeling of, someone else is gonna kill my vibe or whatever, or infringe on whatever I'm doing as original. I've always thought like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if, I could bring what that person does into like what I do, and like we could create kind of like this kind of thing, or that person's really good at this, and I could do whatever with them. That's really
like
all.
When you write your original music, do you prefer more yourself or like with other people?
It's the thing. It's both. I love collaborating, and then sometimes I have raw emotion that gets out there on its own.
But how is that in terms, like if you're writing with somebody, you present something and they go, well, this is good, but this could be better like this. Are you open-minded about that?
Yeah, you have to be.
You do have to be.
I'm always laughing. One of the funniest quotes on here was, actually, we rarely do Zoom, but some people can't be. We had Lily Winwood on, Steve Winwood's daughter. So we asked her, do you like writing your own stuff or collaborating? No, I don't want to collaborate. I want to write my own stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've never just been like that. I do love playing with other people whenever I can.
Yeah, even stuff you've shown me, I've been like, well, what if I did it like this on guitar? And you've been fully open to saying, yeah.
I mean, I'll pull the romantic story into it, but what attracted me to Dan is, just when we started playing together, just the two of us, he made my stuff sound so much cooler and so much better. And it's just like, well, I think, he went into this producer mindset. And I'm like, that's pretty hot. So, I mean, I prefer collaborating with other people.
Well, that's the other piece of the puzzle, too. You have to have someone that can arrange and kind of produce a little bit, or else it's just a mess of sounds,
It can be like that. Yeah.
Well, go back to all like the great rock music and before that. But who was responsible? It was a bunch of people. It was the producers, the musicians, the session musicians. It was a whole bunch of people together being brought to create this stuff.
Absolutely. I think a good example is just, Michael Jackson's Thriller album, which had a lot of talent. But if he did not have Quincy Jones as a producer, it would not be one of the best albums of all time. You do need that aspect on there.
And I think also, in terms of musicians, you could have the best performers, but the biggest thing you need to work with is chemistry.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's like the big one. You could have this. I take it.
Not chemicals.
Not
well, there's a lot of that. Like,
let's
especially back in the days, in the 70s. Don't tell Keith Richards.
There was that.
That was Zed. But I think that's always a key. And I think sometimes, I take it too seriously. There's like a meme going around, well, Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr around Mick Jagger. And I actually wrote a dissertation going, it wouldn't work because they wouldn't have the chemistry. Yeah, they're great. Like, that's why these super groups, a lot of them don't work because you get a bunch of people, they're great players, but they just can't work together.
And that's like a lot, with chemistry, who I collaborate with are just like my best friends. I've done some work with Sarah DeValier, who is just, an incredible musician, but, like, we're so close, and, we're really good friends, and we hang out, and we're respectful of each other, so she's just easy to work with. And, I think that's a huge part of it, for sure.
That's when I saw her show and you were playing a Dinosaur. And I'm not Dinosaur, the big Dinosaur Record Archive.
Right.
And I always say that no matter where you play, will you ever see a stage that has a chandelier and a dinosaur with oven mitts? Which I think is just awesome.
It's a character of a place, yeah.
But that's, you play... so many people. Could you talk about some people you've...
Yeah.
Okay, we only have like a couple hours.
Right. I don't know where to begin. Like Cinnamon Jones is, such
great.
a huge, huge part of, my growth as a musician. Just an incredible, another powerhouse vocalist who has just done so much for me. Also like Teresa Wilcox, for sure. I sat in with her so much, especially in her days when she was always at Dinosaur. She always had, like, me and Junior Spezio sit in and, be horns behind her. I've played with a lot. Subsoil, like, long time ago,
right,
I would play with them all the time, and that's where I could really, find my voice as a horn player in a horn section. I think that really, changed who I was, in a band. It was a huge part because of them. Just because we played a lot, and that's really what it was.
They're a good band.
Just play with, and when I graduated from Nazareth, I just wanted to play with any band who would have me, and that was the best thing I ever did. And so, honestly, and obviously, Susie and Don and just and then all the pro jams, all of the blues pro jams, playing a lot with Steve Lyons at Smokin' Joe's, obviously just the Buddhahood and in my teens, like just anywhere and everywhere, which Rochester has so much of it.
Yeah.
It seems like you've been like the guest star to the Stars this year too. 'Cause every band I'm going to see, it's like Emily Champion guest tonight.
Yeah, it is the flexibility.
I can't remember which ones at this point, but they're like
it's the flexibility of a horn player, honestly, where you can just hop up on stage. Yeah.
It's like we need to find a horn player, or a trumpet player. There aren't that many just floating around like keyboard players and bass players and stuff,
Right. If I'm in the crowd and I have my trumpet and I know the band, I'm going to get on stage.
That trumpet will travel.
It will.
That's something I like to talk about in terms of like between covers and originals. Now, do you have a different approach to playing these? Like if you're doing your own. Now, one of the things I just saying is like I always do a difference between a tribute band and a cover. And if you're doing a tribute band, they want to see exactly how it is.
A copy, copy,
and good for them. They like
Sure.
But like if you're doing covers, sometimes you can really sort of people want to hear that song, but you can add your own something to it, because I know like people have told me like in tribute bands they want to hear it. They don't want to hear you going off on.
They want a replica.
Yeah.
Well, I saw Get the Lead Out, and they always do a spiel. I've seen them a couple of times at the start where they go, "You probably, everyone says, why does it take 7 or 8 of you guys to be Led Zeppelin?" And it's like, well, because we're doing it as the record should sound.
Right.
That takes 7 or 8 of us.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
That's
I
a
think,
good point.
If I was in a cover band or a tribute band, I would definitely want to be in like a Chicago tribute band.
Their early stuff's awesome.
I would want to do all of those horn lines. I would have to take 6 months to really work on those.
I was going to say,
that would be
such
a challenge. They're all in unison. It's like those charts are really difficult to do, but I would die happy doing Chicago as a replica.
Anybody out there?
If you have a Chicago tribute band, you need a trumpet.
What would your Chicago tribute band name be?
Oh man, there's so many options. There's 6 to 4.
Idaho.
There's there's
25 6 to 4.
Yeah, exactly. Or just 2. The second album, I think, is there. or just like, Saturday. There's
Peoria.
The options are endless. They have such a.
I think that too. That takes guts to me too. Or like you said, like Led Zeppelin, or like I saw there's a Rush truck. Who wants to do a Neil Peart? Well, maybe Greg, but
I don't know if I could do that.
Yeah,
I can do some of it. I can do some of it, but
virtuosos.
I can't imagine. No.
Some of this stuff's not that crazy, but a lot of it is.
Well, and I think about, I don't have any experience doing that, but I think about being in that band. What is that like, getting dressed up every show, doing the same, what is, I'd be interested to know what that's like.
See, I can give you an example. My good friend Pat Barry, who's from Kentucky, he did a band called Crazy Train. And he was his closest is when they come around and play here, like he tried to really put on the show. And the only thing funny is they used to have to get like different guitars from like Sabbath, because the one guitar player they had sort of had issues, and I guess he worked for Dio for a couple of weeks and he got fired. And
oh no,
y'all hear why? Let's leave it at that. But he tried. He really, and it turned out he wasn't really even a big Black Sabbath fan. Now when the Osbournes hit, it was big because everybody wanted them, so they got like Vegas. But he had a thing where, like in Kentucky, whenever you think of Kentucky, it's a lot. The standard of living is like cost of living is a lot less. He could have like one guy was a carpenter, part-time a painter, and they could afford these houses.
Right.
But they would play. But he said one of his problems was his back was starting to go. Now it turned out a little later on, the only reason he was doing this was to put his son through college. And as soon as the son graduated, and they do it's called the Louisville Pro Boxing thing, where they help troubled kids, and I think it's a very good charity. Shout out, hi Pat. but now he's in the country and stuff. He's like in a band called The Reeds. And he does some Bob Seger stuff because that's what he preferred. So that's interesting that you would think, okay, why are you doing this? Well, money, number one. Because let's be honest, that's one thing about, you got to make the money.
Yeah.
But he really, really wasn't a big fan. He loved singing the old Sabbath, like he would do The Wizard. Yeah. But he was not like a big, like if you said like, hey, well, Ozzy's playing, you want to go see him, it wouldn't be his thing. It was just, okay.
Would that be like work for him?
He was practical. No, he was practical. No, Ozzy passed out. Hey, you can come up and sing. But so I sometimes it's interesting to find the reason behind this. There might be a love of the music, but you're also feeling like, okay, there's no tribute band for this. Maybe we can hit the market.
Sure. And the thing that comes to me is, Todd East is an incredible pianist, singer, everything. He has not lived in Rochester for a long time, but when he was here and doing solo gigs, he was, doing the covers, and he is pretty much, if Stevie Wonder and Elton John had a baby, it would be Todd East. So a lot of people would come up and request that he do all of those, hit songs, that were those guys. And he was so nice. He did all of them, but he did them 100% his way. And they were very jazzy. He made them sound a lot more complicated. He made them sound like even more amazing. So it was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this cover, but this is the way I'm going to do it, and you might not like it.
I fall for that. There was like a saying in Don Felder's book that Henley made the Eagles, you sounded like the album. Now, my view on that, when I go to see a show, if you're doing original cover, I want to see something different. I can listen to your CD at home.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I prefer original music for that reason.
Yeah, that's why I'm mostly original music. Yeah. And I get into so many, there's like this chasm, like with some friends of mine, which I just try and try. It's like, come to see these bands, you might like it. Like, we're going to go see this Eagles cover band. Well, that's cool for you, but, if you see this, you might enjoy this stuff.
Absolutely. And it's like, you see Tedeschi Trucks live, they do their own music, they do originals, and they'll throw in a lot of covers that they do their way. They make it, a 12-minute jam, and it's awesome the way they do it. You will hear that tune in a way you've never heard it before.
But there's another thing about music. The Dan Wiley's with the Cosmic Rough Riders, he wrote the best thing about musicians I've ever heard. Now, like with Greg, who probably owns an island because he plays in 100 bands. You go vacation at your island.
To escape from all the bands that don't like you.
This is like I talk about supporting local music is, you got to be a little bit you really have to like sort of have a passion, be drawn to, because most musicians don't make a lot of money.
Oh,
I've
never heard that.
No. No, you never heard this.
This is why I got into the business.
Well,
but he said most people think of, you know what it is? It's like I've dabbled in movies and other stuff, or like this. It's like, you're in movies, you must be rich, or like own a business, you're rich, or you must be a rock star. People who don't know are like artists. Here, paint me for free.
Right.
And people don't get. But I mean, that's why I always say support local music, support music.
Oh, yeah,
people do
sure.
not. You're not like rich, like except Greg, as I've said.
Well, it's the thing. Yes, absolutely support yourself. I mean, support local music, but also and you have to support yourself. Yeah. Absolutely. Support Greg for Greg Island.
It's kind of tough, keep taking care of an island. Right?
Exactly.
I got to kill all these Zulu warriors.
Yeah.
No, but
it's an interesting place.
One of the things. I'm always arguing that with people because I'm retired. Maybe it is only $60 or $80, but I need the $80.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
I mean, it offsets my budget, and it's extra money I don't need to go to the bank. But I mean, we had this discussion the other day. We're going to take one of the gigs and put the money towards, something, a recording or something. And I said, okay, can we at least split 100 of it and get $20 a piece so I can walk out of the place thinking at least that I got something?
Yeah, something.
I don't mind putting the money back in because it's better than coming out of your pocket.
You're always going to make a sacrifice as a musician. You
Right.
are not going to make the money that smart people make. I wish it was my dream in life to be a dermatologist where I could just go to school and work on people's skin and just have a 9 to 5. I wish that was my dream, but
Right.
I would hate myself. Now, on the other hand,
apologies to any dermatologists.
I would.
Then you got some skin in the game.
Exactly. Greg. I also hate when people are like, "Oh, you're a musician. You must love what you do. How amazing to create this amazing music!" And you're following your passion. It's just no,
right.
My life is very difficult.
That's right.
And also practicing is tedious and hard and
Nobody's
stressful.
paying me for that, right?
Exactly. I want to throw my trumpet in the snow a lot. This isn't fun. And so I tell my students when they get, aggravated and frustrated, it's just this is not supposed to be fun.
Right.
You will reap the benefits when you build the foundation. But this is not good, fun time where this is not a romanticized movie of just,
right.
Enduring your passion.
Yeah, you don't get great after 2 hours.
Exactly. It doesn't work like that.
One thing I haven't answered, what do you tend to listen to, and what sort of some of your favorites, in terms of your own musical preferences?
I mean,
we're never one of those desert islanders.
Sure. Yeah.
Just whatever pops in your head.
The cliche is I listen to everything, but to quote Dr. John, who quoted Duke Ellington, who quoted Louis Armstrong, just so you get the full range of this. So there's two kinds of music. There's good music and bad music, and I listen to good music.
Yeah, I've always used the Duke Ellington quote.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it went back to Louis Armstrong.
Yeah, a lot of people have corrected me a lot.
Unless your buddy Rich.
Yeah.
No!
Exactly. But, day to day, one of my biggest influences in trumpet is Lee Morgan, who is, in the hard bop era, so kind of 60s to 70s, a little bit after Miles. And, I love him because he was a trumpet player who thought like a drummer, for sure. He was molded by Dizzy Gillespie and Freddie Hubbard. So definitely one of my all-time favorites. I'm a big fan of blues. I play blues guitar. I love slide. I love, all the classic Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, but then today, Derek Trucks is also one of my all-time.
Would you ever do a guitar gig these days?
If I was called to. The thing is, in Rochester, incredible guitarists are a dime a dozen. I am not worthy.
You're not worthy.
Including Dan.
But that's always something that amazed me because guitar, I took a semester of classical guitar just to see what it was about. And I mean, I got through it, but It was hard, you know. I mean,
I didn't like doing classical
I
guitar.
struggled at Nazareth. I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure.
So did I. Yeah.
But you know, the knowledge stays with you, so that's why you can go on and play more because you got a little more info than other people. But
sure.
How there can be so many guitar players is beyond me. Because
it's
not an easy thing to do. But like you say, self-taught. I can't even imagine that. Because I'd be like,
I wouldn't know where to begin. Yeah.
So I got to give you a lot of credit for that one.
The cost of production on guitars is going down steadily, from what I understand. So it makes it much more accessible. Apparently, the sales spiked in the pandemic. Doesn't mean everybody who bought one's going to be good, but
Well, that's how you think about music. So a lot of times, like you go like Appalachian music, third world. What was like some of these rhythms? It was we're poor, we have to bang on a can or something. We had to make it.
Yeah.
But I remember like one of the other things for me too was as I said, I grew up with I had music in the family like new wave and punk and stuff. But when you go to school, remember you're in school and where I was, you were put into a group like you had like some kind of. So I still remember like I knew a bunch of metal guys and I'm in the gym and I'm talking to a friend about. Oh no, I got like a Coltrane album. I see one of my friends seeing me, hearing that. Jeez. Because you broke the rule. But then the funny part is like after you graduate, you find like all these guys they're going to all kinds of different things, but they had to stay in the musical closet.
I mean, like I like the best of both worlds. Like playing, in the brass quintets at school. Yes, lots of fun. Like concert band, usually fun. Even the jazz ensembles, in college. Like, it molds you as a player, but, like, during that time, I was playing at Dinosaur on weekends,
right.
I was still out in the bars, and I needed both to grow as a player.
Right.
For sure.
I know I was playing when I went to school, and as I was still playing on the weekends, I was in, like, a stupid top 40 type show band. And I know a lot of people didn't like that. Blah, 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 blah. Look, you know what? I'm trying to be in the real world and in the classroom here at the same time.
Yeah.
Be like Michael Caine was, where Michael Caine would take, like, he charged less. He would be in, like, a bunch of movies. And some weren't great. But what he said was, I was learning every time. So whatever you're doing, you're learning a little bit.
Yeah. 100%. That's I love that. I love Michael Caine, and I love that philosophy.
And he says, as long as the fifth one's good, though, remember that. That's what he said. They'll forgive you. But I think this has been a great talk. It's been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks it's been like jazz. It sort of flowed. We didn't talk about, Greg, ice fishing to, jack it all up. But now, I'm almost like, it's like we're saying, like, if you want to see Emily play and Dan, you could probably find them because you're everywhere.
Well, what's the name of the band that you have now?
Dan and I play with Pass By the Crooks. It looks like Pass X the Crooks.
Yeah, it's stylized with an X.
You can find anywhere that we are playing at emilychampion.com. And, on my Instagram is Emmy Champs, my Facebook.
Okay.
It's all out there. But, yeah, all of my gigs are listed on my website.
Yeah, half of, like, the invites I get, it's like, well, Emily's playing this one.
Oh, yes, I'm honored to be involved in so many projects.
Are you taking students right now? Or are you?
Yeah, so I teach
if you were interested in, it's going to be tough but rewarding.
It's true. I teach out of House of Guitars. I teach trumpet, guitar, and piano for Costello music. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And Dan does as well. Well,
just guitar.
Just guitar, yeah.
My classic musical moment when I was buying a bass. Now, you understand, this was like 3 decades ago.
That's great, man. Passing the torch.
Yeah.
I'm buying a bass without the guitars. I don't know who the guy was. And I'm actually I talk to Armin all the time there.
Yeah.
So I'm buying a bass. I go to ask the one guy, I'm not interested in this bass. And he sits there, burps and walks away.
Okay.
I'm like, this is a rock and roll moment. No, I always like it's authentic. It's like, okay, this is like your standard. Hi, I can help you.
So did you buy it?
It was in a case. But it's not cool. Like that's I'm sure. Awesome. Like you just on your website to sign up.
For Belch
review. Yeah. All my gigs will always be posted on my website, and I always market myself on all social media.
Fortunately, that's the one thing I tell. So I have some friends who they don't really want to go, well, nobody will know. It isn't like a little elf comes out and says you're playing.
Yeah.
You have to learn, unfortunately. You do have to, it's part of the game.
It
Hey,
is
I
part of the game.
want to touch on one quick thing.
Yeah.
So, Dan, you were saying you took some business music. Yeah. Easy for me to say. Music business. So, I would heartily encourage other musicians to do that. Wouldn't you? I mean, to me, you have to know something about contracts and the different, because people are so dumb when it comes to this.
Yeah, a lot of what I learned, it was right on the cusp of, now it's all kind of phased out and different because it was on sort of the end of the tangible mediums of like CDs and
Box
stuff
office
like that.
and stuff like that.
So a lot of it changed, but we did learn contracts and copyrights.
Yeah.
Copyrights is, I think, what there was the most confusion on at the time, but now it's even more confusing.
Right.
It's like, when can I use a clip of a song in a video online and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's worth knowing, but also it might be a good time if you're in the law field, which I work for a law firm. It might be a good time to get into copyright law because that's something that, as the technology is growing, is going to change very, very quickly.
Well, I know there was a thing with some podcasts. Like podcasts can use certain music, but actual radio broadcasts can't, or something.
Yeah, well, we can, like, we have
music and stuff.
either, like, for example, like, we've had people on our show where, like, when Maywood, I told Josh Netsky, we're going to play Maywood. He's like, cool, man, you got to get their permission. Or, like, it's like some bands are playing at Abilene, and they go up to, like, Nikki Hill. Can we play this? Sure.
Yeah.
But they would still strike it. Like, I told Josh, and he's like, they even strike it when I play my music.
Yes, that's my understanding, is because you're going through, so the royalties
we were just, like, if we got anything, it's for you.
Yeah, right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so I think it's an automated process that just scrubs.
Yeah, because these were friends of mine. They're telling them they're crazy. But this sounds stupid, but a friend of mine gave me some advice the past weekend. You don't need it, I'm sure, but when you're musicians and you're playing somewhere, make sure you know what they're paying you.
Right.
Yeah, we did learn that.
I found that one out from, I go back to the old Blues Brothers thing. Well, y'all, we're going to pay you $300, but you drank $400 worth of beer. But, no, because I've had friends like saying, they'll play for 3 hours. They wouldn't name the place, but they said they gave them like $50 for 2 of them.
Yeah.
Know what you're getting paid.
My music business professor, I think he's still at SUNY Fredonia. He would put in all his contracts, he would say, if I do not receive payment in full, the rights to the song or whatever it was all revert to me.
Wow.
And so the people would say, well, this is a crazy thing. Like, why would we ever give you all the rights to the song? And he would say, well, what, are you not going to pay me?
Right.
And he said sometimes it was great, and it made sure people who were going to stiff him didn't stiff him, and sometimes he lost work.
Well, I always, like, my little joke where I was with my friend Adriana was always, when you get big, I'm going to sign you to a contract. Don't read the fine print, okay? I'm retiring.
Right.
But this has been cool. Now, we're going to have, Greg, what are you doing lately?
Well,
everything, of course.
Not yet. Well, this month's pretty light. I've got the 24th coming up with, I believe it's
Cupid's Spoon Ring at the Bug. God, I even know that John Payton project.
Yeah, at the Bug Jar with
the Electric
with
Spiders
and those guys.
I just love the name, the Electric Spiders. I don't know because I love the name, the Lime Spiders. So they better be cool.
And then I've got the 31st. I'm playing at Smokin' Joe's with In the Mix, the classic rock. So that's about it for this month.
Oh, that's where I recognize you from. I auditioned for you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Was I there?
Yeah. How'd it go?
Now I know this guy.
And why aren't you in the band? What the hell happened there?
Greg, you play out a lot more than I do. You are everywhere.
Wasn't
more
than
I am.
Dan, it wasn't a case that you're going to go, I can't keep up with that drummer.
Well, a lot of it's just about relationships. I've been a firm believer in getting as many people's orbits as possible.
Well, and because Jeannie's the singer.
Right.
And I'm closer with her, and I'd seen you guys a few times, and the previous guitarist was just like, a tough act to follow is an understatement.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as always, we're going to end the song, play one of your songs that you could pick. Either you could tell us what you pick, or they can just listen to it to the end and find out.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what you want to play?
Probably, it's an album that I am not on because I joined the Crooks after they recorded, but, it is featuring Dan a lot, and so I think something, Pass by the Crooks, and also, our lead singer, Sarah Pasamonte, is such an incredible writer and vocalist.
Oh, I gave her a cat.
Oh, that was you?
The black cat. Yeah,
oh, cool. Yeah. No, she's
Way to
great.
curse her, Greg.
Yeah, no, she, and then Dan composed, I think, most of that music on the latest album. So, yeah, I would love to feature something off of their latest album, Static Electricity. And just when you go see the band, just note that I'm now in the band. So they do have a horn now.
Picture a trumpet.
If you like it now, you're gonna like it even more. If you like it now,
just wait.
That's awesome. Well, thanks a lot. The only thing I'll end the show with, I'm hopeless. It won't work, but go Vikings on Monday.
The day gonna come even though I don't wanna let the race in. I'd rather stay in one more day. The sun's gonna rise in an hour. The day gonna come even though I don't wanna let the race in. I'd rather stay in one more day. One more day. One more day. Yeah. I'd rather stay in.
For the ones in